Okay. All right. So just real quickly, welcome to the more web authoring webinar. Tonight, what we're going to do ideally is we're going to have an ePortfolio shell completed at the end. So in the earlier, so you have two kind of big projects at the end of the course. The first one is the multimedia project, which is you showing me that you know how to appropriately use media individually and together. And then the web page or website is sort of your shell or your container for that. Then the other big project due at the end is the ePortfolio. So, and that's where you show off your projects, your skills and that sort of thing. So we're gonna, as you move through the course, both of those will be things that you update and add to for final submission on the April 4th and April 11th, I believe are the two due dates for those. So they're presented in week 1, 2, 3, somewhere around there, one of those modules. But the idea is that just to kind of introduce you to the requirements of them and then allow y'all time to kind of add content and update content as we go through. So hopefully tonight you will have an ePortfolio shell. We'll have a little bit of content on it, but we're really going to get into some more kind of advanced things, really do web authoring the way it's supposed to be done. So the tables is not really what you use in up-to-date like web authoring, but it's a good kind of scaffolding tool I found over the years of teaching this. So we'll actually work with CSS tonight. We'll work with some divs, and we'll also work with templates. So many of you are brand new to web authoring. There's a lot of people in this world that do it really well and do it for a living, and they will give you what they've done for free. So we're going to start off with some things that are great learning tools to kind of see how people did things and how they structured things. And then you can the idea is that you can go and do your own from scratch if you would like, but you can also use one of these templates as a starting point and then make it your own. So that's a little bit of what we're going to do tonight. We're going to start with a template and we're going to make it our own. In the course, there are websites with thousands and thousands of free templates. There are some that cost, so avoid those unless you feel like paying for a template. But I've already downloaded one for tonight, and we're going to use it just because I like the kind of color scheme of it, or lack of a color scheme, I guess you could say. So I have a couple quick questions that were posted. One is for the web shell. I suggested doing a storyboard via Google Docs or Word. Is that required? No. It's just kind of the idea of, outlining a paper. You want to know where you're going to go. So having that storyboard is more a tool for you to map out what you're going to do and, may see if colors look well together. Do you like the links there? Who's going to be using your product, your website, and that sort of thing. So it's not something you'll turn in. The only thing you'll submit to me is the URL of one of your pages, your home page or whatever page 2 is, whatever page 3, any of the pages. You'll just submit one URL to me, and that'll be your submission for the web shell, which is due Sunday. Okay, so before we get into the nuts and bolts of tonight, does anyone have any questions about the web shell requirements? Anything jumping out at you that is unclear? If you want to type it in the chat window, if you want to raise your hand, I can kind of.
I have a question.
Okay, Imani, go ahead.
Well, with uploading there in Dreamweaver, there is like a section for an IP address. And I'm wondering where that information is like located. I have like the website and then the website with my, username with it. But in that site manager, there's also a IP address input that I was kind of wondering, like, did we get this information?
So here's mine. Do you mean the FTP address or?
Yes, I guess so. I guess I was a little confused there.
Yeah, so the FTP address is just my site. So it's where you're uploading it to. So it's just the main kind of computer that you'd be using, and that's rhartshorn.com. So it's going to be the same for everybody. So when you do this, the only thing you really need to fill out is above the test. Everything below, don't put anything in the root directory, and don't put, the web URL will auto populate to rhartshorn.com. So you really just need to focus on rhartshorn.com and then your username and password. It'll be FTP and then whatever you want to call it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Do we need to, well, if we need to run through setting up the servers, we'll do that again later. If anyone needs to redo that, we can set that up. So, okay. So Lisa asked, can you use these templates for the templates? We're only going to do one today. We looked at some before. I think Coffee Like was one of them. We looked at a few others just to kind of show Blue, Mike. There were a few that we looked at. You're welcome to use those for your template. That's completely fine. I mean, for your web shell, that's completely fine if you feel comfortable with it. The idea is that those of you that have web experience can start doing some more advanced web shell and web authoring stuff. Those of you that are brand new to it, a lot of y'all are going to start with these table-based websites. But then as you move through the course, you're going to kind of update to a more appropriate kind of more updated web authoring kind of approach. Okay, is it okay for the graphic? Yeah, so if the graphics don't need to be, I mean, you want them to be sized reasonably. And if you have a series of graphics together, I'm going to say, hey, they should be consistent in size if it makes sense for what you're doing, but they don't necessarily have to be perfectly done right now. Composer, you should be able to resize them, but it takes a little bit of time. Mika, yeah, if web shell is not part of your path, that's fine. But you're going to want to have something there as a container for your web shell, because let's say you name your first page in your web shell index.html, and then you go in and create another site and throw it in that same folder, and you call it index. You call that your ePortfolio, for example. You throw your main page is index.html. Well, your ePortfolio index is going to overwrite your web shell index. So that's why I have these different folders for BizChrome is one, web shell home is the other. So it's important to have them set up. And that's why when I set up my site, I set up this bigger shell folder that's not part of the URL. And then within each of those, each folder is a website. Now here I have a bunch of different stuff, which I'll talk about in a little bit, it'll make more sense as we kind of go through this. And Cindy, no, 100% is not unworkable. 90% is just to give a little buffer. The key, well, it's not a necessary thing, Cindy, but I like to break up my sites with color. So I have content area as a different color as the outer edges and that sort of thing. But that's not necessary depending on how you structure your page. It's really overall what it looks like. So playing around with these things is really kind of key to it. So there's no real right or wrong answer depending on what the final product is. You can do it a bunch of different ways. Okay, that's a lot more questions than I expected. So, but they're good questions. So, all right. So another one. No, I'm just kidding. Photoshop edit. So under page properties, there's a Photoshop edit. Yes, but it's a little bit more. You can do Photoshop directly. So that's one of the great things about Creative Cloud is they work so well together, all the Adobe products. But if hold off on that because it can get a little tricky later on, or it can get a little tricky. So we'll touch base on that when we get to Photoshop a little bit later in the course. Okay. All right. Okay, so that's that. So no questions there. Now your ePortfolio, I'm going to run through this very quickly, and then, like I said, get it because it's going to highlight what we're going to create tonight. So your ePortfolio is going to have 6 pages, 5 pages, an index page where you're going to talk about yourself and introduce people. You don't have to talk about yourself, but you're going to use it as a splash page, intro page. Your projects page where you're going to link to all the projects you've completed in this course. You can link to other projects. That's up to you. If you want to, you've done some good papers or some other things, and you want to add them to that, that's fine. But the ones that I'm going to require are the graphics layout, the audio project, and your multimedia project. If you want to do your web shell, that's fine. The web shell is cool because you can link to your web shell and then do your final multimedia project, so you can kind of see the growth in your skills over time and kind of show that as well. Then you're going to have a links readings page where you're going to provide a list of resources you found useful in your studies. So you're going to need at least 3 readings and then at least 3 links. So they can be like tutorials, YouTube videos, whatever the links can. The readings might be articles, they might be a book, chapter, whatever. Something that you found useful. It doesn't have to be associated with this class. It can be something that interests you in general. That's kind of up to you. You're going to list your coursework, and we'll talk about this more later, but really all I care about is your graduate coursework. If this is your first course in the program, that's fine. You're going to have one course, but we'll talk about some ways to structure it. You might show upcoming courses, and you might do like a reverse kind of chronological order or something. And then you're going to do your resume or vita. So, and here you're not just going to put a link to it, or you're not going to open it up in Word and save Word as a web page. You're going to actually make it fit the content, fit the structure of your web design. Okay, so those are the 5 pages, and you're going to just create a website, and all the stuff's here. We're going to have later on in the course an updating your multimedia project and webinar and ePortfolio webinar. So we'll have another session on web. This will be the last one for web for a little bit. We'll get into audio and graphics and stuff next, but we'll revisit this later on. And I may have some sort of help sessions, for kind of optional help sessions throughout the course, kind of periodically as well. Okay, everybody good so far? All righty. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to create an ePortfolio. So as I said before, I like to collect all of my stuff and organize it nicely. So Web Shell Home is my Web Shell page. So that's one website right there. And if I open it up, I have all my 3 pages, I have PDFs and other things here. Undeviating was one of the templates that we looked at. So I wanted to kind of move this out. We can look at it as well. BizChrome is the template that I'm going to use. So if I open up Index right here, this is what it's going to look like. Okay, there's a rollover effect on these. It's not working because of the browser. And then I'm just going to go in and tweak this and make it my own. So BizChrome is the template. Now, when we look at this, I want to highlight a few things. One is this style.css page. I'm going to open that real quickly. And oh, great, it's a bunch of code and stuff, okay? So this right here is a site that all of my pages are referencing for various styles. So all of y'all have worked in Word. So headings are, when you go to do the style sheet, like you can do heading 1 is H1, H2, H3, and H4. So here's the heading level. So all of these headings convert to lowercase. Then heading 2, not only does it convert to lowercase, but it also changes in size to 1.5 ems. H2, 3, and 4 are 1 ems, and the color changes to 000. Do y'all need to know what that means? No, but being able to read this and look at this is useful, because I can go, well, maybe I don't want H2, H3, and H4 to be this color. I want them to be red. So I could just go in here and type red or a hex code or something, and all of my heading 2s, 3s, and 4s in my website, if I had 5 pages, all the heading 2, 3s, and 4s on those 5 pages would change. If I had 1,000 pages, all the H2, 3s, and 4s on those 1,000 pages would change. So you can see how it saves you a lot of time, very easy to do. Over here, this is the hover for links. So if they do a rollover or hover over it, there's no text change. The basic body font size is 14, 1.75 em. The background color is here. The background URL is images/bg.jpg, and the color is 3D. So this is just code for you to access. You don't need to know this, but it's useful for troubleshooting because you can go into different areas of this and change things very quickly and easily. You can also do it over here, and you can also do it on the individual pages, which we'll talk about as we kind of move through this a little bit more. But really what I want you to know is that all of these pages, everything here, everything in BizChrome. So if I have index and then I have resume and projects and all these different pages, they're all going to be referencing whatever's in this style.css. So anytime I change this style.css structure, it's going to apply that to all of the individual pages. The licensing requirements are here. So all you really have to do for this one is put down who it's already in there. You just can't take away who created it. And then I have, this isn't part of it, but miscellaneous. I'll leave it there because I want to put some miscellaneous items there. And then there's this images folder. And you see the images bg.jpg. Well, just a second ago, I showed you that images/bg.jpg. That's the background image. Pick 1, pick 2, pick 3, pick 4, pick 5. And those are the pictures that are in this index page. We're not going to use those because we're going to make this our own, but that's going to be just letting you know what those are. So I've collected a few things that I want to put on BizChrome in this site. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change BizChrome to ePort. I'll just call it ePortfolio, okay? So now this is my ePortfolio folder. So when I go here, I don't see BizChrome, I see ePortfolio, I can start working on it, but I haven't really done anything. It's still the BizChrome template right now. I've collected my resume, so a PDF version of my CV. So I'm gonna drag that into miscellaneous. And all I'm doing now is just organizing stuff like I did on the shells folder. I collected those images of the screen of the logos, and I collected the CV link, that Word document. I collected the images for the banner. All I've done here is I've collected these outside here, and I'm just putting them in this ePortfolio folder. So there's that structure. So here's my self picture. So I'm going to put that in images because that's going to be an image I want to use. I have this UCF banner. I'm going to put that in images as well. I have this project images folder. And the reason I have that there is because that's specifically for project images. I just want to have those stand out. I don't have to do that. I could put those in my images folder as well. I just like to have these images separated from that. And then my actual projects themselves, I'm going to put in there. And now I have everything nice and neatly organized here. So I have my images, I have my index page, which is nothing, I haven't done anything to. I have the licensing text, I have the miscellaneous folder with my CV in it. I have the project images with these 4 project screenshots, and then I have my projects right there. Okay, so that's all I have right now. So now I want to start playing around. I'm just going to close this out. And all I've done now, see how it's nice and clean? So when I go to Dreamweaver, I'm going to see this same structure. So let me open Dreamweaver. And if I look over here, I now have this nice same structure. And when I open up ePortfolio, I have all of that content there. That was a lot. How are you feeling? Okay. All
So
right.
are we going to use the same index as the same file to work on?
So that's a great question. So when we did our web shell, when we created it from scratch, we created our main page first, and then we just saved it as a new file name and updated the content, right? Y'all remember that? I hope you do, because it's kind of, that's what we're going to do here. So I'm going to go to ePortfolio. I'm going to open up my index, and I'm going to play around with it. I'm going to get it to as much as I'm going to get the content to as much as I can where it's sort of finalized, okay? Finalized. And then I'm gonna go, okay, index, I'm gonna save it as, file save as resume.html, file save as projects.html, file save as readings.html, file save as whatever the other one is, .html, coursework.html. Okay, so first thing I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna highlight BizChrome. Now, a couple things, I'm in my split view right now, but I like the design view. And if I want to go in and play around with something, I can do the split view. So right now, you can see here, this is what I have highlighted. Now, if you see a href, that's a link. That's a hyperlink. Href is a hyperlink. Okay. And you see that number sign. What do y'all think that number sign means? Can anyone tell me? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? So can y'all see it? There's like a little number sign there. Someone
The
wants.
size of the font.
What's that? What's that, Mika? Mika?
The size of the font.
Nope. So if I want to make a link here, right there, so this is a template, so be thinking about that. If I want to make a link there, I would type in http://www.google.com. All that number sign is a placeholder. It's just saying there's no link there yet. So whenever you see that number sign, it's just, so like right here, where it says home, and you see that number sign there, that just means that this right here isn't linked to anything yet. So it's, as part of the template, it's sort of like a placeholder for you to put those links in. So, so you can see all of these things. If I click on this image here, I can see the width of it and the height of it, and then the alt label. So right now there's no alt label on it. But let's say I want to replace it with another image because I don't like this image. Well, I want that other image to be roughly about that size, right? So when I resize that image, I'm going to go, okay, I want it to be 1116 wide and 216-ish tall. So I can kind of play around with I can play around with images I'm looking for there. It'll all make sense in a little bit, I promise. So, but this right here is just kind of placeholder text. So, you know, just kind of go here. So you'll see here, if you just kind of highlight this, you see biz Chrome and then strong and slash strong. Slash is just the end of code. Strong is bold. Okay, and look here, bold. And you don't have to know all this stuff. You just need to know enough to kind of troubleshoot and be dangerous. So that's kind of, if this is way over your head, I promise it'll start making sense as you kind of get into it and start playing around with it. But the split view is useful because you can highlight stuff and then kind of look at it and see what that code is. So you see here, FWT, that's a link. But when I highlight it, this is kind of high. You see here, ahref equals quote httpw. So this right here is the code for for a link. And then you see the actual font, the actual text, and then you see that end /A. Well, that's the end of the link. Okay, so these are things that will kind of make sense as you play around with it. You don't need to know these things yet, but as we get into code a little bit this week. But this is just really just structural code, HTML. Okay, so now I'm going to go to my design view because I like that better, and I'm just going to start getting rid of stuff. So I don't need this particular table over here. So I'm just going to delete that. I might keep this one here. And if I look, so a couple things here. If I highlight something, I can go to my split view, and it tells me what the ID is. So remember when in the first session when we created the structure using tables? Well, CSS or the way to really do it is something called divs. And a div is just, it's almost like a table cell. So you can kind of see here, these look like table cells, right? Like this right here is a big container here. This is a table cell here, table cell here. So what HTML and CSS use are divs, okay? Well, they define the structure, the way the material in a particular div looks is by giving it code. So here, when I click on this one, and I go down to the code, I see div ID is box 1. So this right here is box 1. So any code over here, when I go to look at the CSS designer, we'll talk about this more later, or I look in here, I can modify stuff by looking for box 1. Here, if I look at box 2, so this right here, the div ID is box 2. So if I go over here, if I select files, I get my files thing. If I get CSS libraries, you don't need to worry about that. Insert is my all my insert images and all that. But CSS Designer is where I can go ahead and play with stuff. So I can see when I select box one becomes selected over here in my CSS Designer. And then I can look at the properties. So the properties of the layout, the width is 1116. So what if I change that? So let's say I change that to 508 pixels. What's going to happen? It's going to cut in half, right? Or 508, right? And that's what happened. Y'all see? Okay. So I don't like that. So I go to 1116 and it goes back. Here, if I go to box 2, it's 550. Well, maybe I want box 2 to be the same as box 1. So I'm going to make it 1116. Boom. Okay, so box 2 now has the same width as box 1. So I can play around anytime I get into this, anytime I select something. So here, I see that this is an H3 in box 2. So I can go here, content to H3. I can play around and change the font color. So let's say I'm wanting to make this red. It changes it to red. Okay, pretty easy, right? I mean, it takes time and practice to get used to, but anytime I select something, I can then go over here and I can modify the properties of it by selecting, it'll select it, or if I just select it here, I don't actually have to select it here. If I know what it's called, I can select there, and then I can go in and play with the properties. So we'll get into this a little bit more, but this is a really great, quick and easy way to modify stuff. Let me undo this, edit, undo, okay. All right.
Dr. Hartshorn?
Yep.
A small question.
Sure.
So whatever is in the CSS Designer thing is also in the page properties, correct?
Yes, great. Yeah. So
Yes.
I was gonna, so one of the great things I mentioned about Dreamweaver before is that there are many, many ways to do things. So if I have items here, if I select these here, so box 1 here, and then you can go, and then you can click on the CSS Designer and it gives you information, the width here, and you can go into, you can either change it down in the code or you can change it in CSS Designer. Usually the CSS Designer is the easiest way to kind of do it.
Okay, that was my next question. What is easier?
Yeah, I'll highlight what I want, and then I'll just go over here and say, okay, I want box 1 to be 800 pixels wide or whatever it is. Or maybe I want to give it a background color. And you can kind of see here the properties. Let me see if it'll, so I could give it a bigger margin. I could, you don't really worry about those. See if, so here, if I looked at the text in there, so I could modify the color of the text, I could modify the size of the text. I can do all kinds of stuff, play around with all kinds of stuff in here, but it gives you like the background color. I could change the background and do all these things here. But I don't, for this one, I don't need to. And also I want to keep it relatively clean. So I just wanted to highlight this. And we will talk about it more in a future couple of webinars. So, okay, so I'm going to go to my design view and I'm just going to get going here. So I'm going to select Biz Chrome. Just now, design view, again, sometimes if you're trying to edit and you can't, it's because you're in live view and you're trying to click on stuff and edit and it won't let you do it. So make sure you're in design view. And sometimes you'll get stuff like this that looks weird, but that's just because it's the structure of the page of the template. So I'm just going to try Richard Hartshorn, home. Okay. And then I'm going to go to home and I'm going to pull up my properties window real quick. And here I'm going to I'm going to go to my link and see I have my number sign there. I'm just going to call this index.html. Okay. Then I'm going to go to services and I'm going to make this one maybe projects. Okay. And highlight all that. And I'm going to call this page projects.html. I'm going to go to blog and make that courses. And then I'm going to go to courses.html. You could change it coursework, whatever you want. Readings. So I'm going to go here and make that readings.html. And about, I'm going to change that to resume. Make that resume.html. You could do CV, whatever you want. Now contact, I could leave that there and make it a contact page, or I could just delete it. I don't want to make a contact page. So far I'm feeling pretty good about this. I have my, I've changed some stuff here. So I'm going to go real quickly and file save. So I can, now see the stars on CSS. I'm going to go ahead and file save that too. Okay. So you can see whenever you have this here, if it's referencing multiple CSS pages, or it'll have them all up. But here we only have one CSS that's being referenced. So we're good to go. I'm going to click on this here, and I'm going to change this image. I don't like this image, so I'm going to go to my folder. I'm going to go to my so SRC is my image source, and you can see right now it's image pic1.jpg. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to go into my images, and I have this UCF banner picture. And it's, you see here, this 1116 by 216. So this right here is really big. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm just going to try and make it 1116. Whoops. And it makes it 310. So I'm going to unclick this thing here, and I'm going to just try and make it like 216. Just see what I like that look. It doesn't look too compressed, but you're going to have to be careful, because sometimes if you try and resize and you change the dimensions, it messes it up. But does everyone agree that that looks okay? Okay, cool. All right, so we're good there. I'm going to double click here. I don't have an alt label yet, so I'm going to click here in the alt label and say UCF fountain banner. Okay. In our web shell portfolio, we would change the links. Yeah, so Harris, yeah, you would change the links to whatever you called them. Now there's a couple of ways you could do that. So here, I know what I'm going to call these pages because they're simple, but you're going to be very exact. So if I name this projects.html with a capital P, that's going to be a problem, because the link's not going to work because it's not a capital P. So it's very important that you keep them simple and kind of clean in that way. You'll also notice here that you have document title. So I'm going to real quickly just go Richard Hartshorn and do home. Okay. And I'm going to change that on each page as well. Okay. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to go back to my design view because I don't need to see all that stuff. And I'm going to say, welcome to my ePortfolio. And I'm just going to highlight this and say, this page is blah, 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 blah. So here, this is what you have to keep, BizChrome by and photographs by photograph. If you're not using the photographs, you can probably get rid of those if that part. And I want to put a picture of myself. So I have images, pic.jpg there. It's about 220 by 196. So let's see what we got. I have an image. I've already collected one. Hartshorn, ePort, okay. So I want to double click on it and go, oops. So let's go 250 and see if that's too big. And kind of play around with the size here. Maybe okay. Here I could edit in Photoshop and crop it and stuff, but I'm not going to here. And I'm going to put Hartshorn pick, okay. And then here, this is bold, so I'm going to try and get off of this. Actually, let me see what this is. So get rid of this strong. Should be able to delete that. Yeah. Edit undo. Okay, there we go. So just click on select it and click on that. And so I want to provide some introductory text here. So I'm going to delete I don't need this, but I'm going to leave it here for now because I want it for some of my sub pages. Does that make sense? So, but I don't necessarily, I could also just copy this box here. Copy, paste, whoops. Enter. Okay. I'm not going to, I'll show you how to do that later, but we would just have to go in and modify it's calling it box 3. Okay, that's why we'll figure that out later. So I want to keep this box 2 here for now, but I could also just like go down to the end of this and just start adding more content down there. So I could just use one box. It would be up to however I want to do it. But I'm going to just go ahead and save that again. Okay. So now I'm kind of done. Maybe I want to make, actually one thing I want to do here is I want to make this an email link. So I'm going to go to, you see here, you got the thing there. I'm going to go to mail to : and then my email address. I could also very easily just do that down here in the footer and just go, sorry. Shift enter, and then do the email link there. So just highlight this, go to link, mail to : and we're good to go. So you could do that as well. So it's up to you how you want to do it. You don't necessarily have to have that as an email link there. And we're good. So I'm going to save this. And now, can you apply links to images? Yeah. So great question, Lisa. So I want to make this a link. So I'll just go here and just type in, and it would then make it a link. I want to make it go to a new window. So a target. So down here, I'll just hit enter and give it target _ blank. And then now it's going to open in a new window there. So yeah, you can make images links very, very easily. I know what's open. Change things. Okay, I think I'm caught up on, okay, perfect. So now is where the magic happens, and I'm going to do my entire shell in a matter of seconds. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and I'm going to call it projects.html, click Save. So now I have it open. 2 changes real quick, projects, and then down here in the projects, and save. Okay, File, Save As, and I'm going to call it Courses. 2 quick changes. And save. File, Save As. Readings, is that right? Is that what I called it? Readings.html, save. Change this, whoops, change this. Readings. Save it. And then last one is File, Save As. And all I'm doing is going to the File menu. Y'all can't see that part, but File, Save As, and then Resume. Save, and then go here, Resume. And Resume. Okay. And then I would just put my content on those pages. So all my pages are open now. So like I would go to my projects page, and I want to welcome to my projects page. And then here I'm going to change the, okay, I would start, let's see, Mig game, Adam game. So these are projects I've collected. And I might go here, and I have an image for it. So if you look at the files here, I have my project images, I have an animatum, and I have the playing game. So the MIG game is here. So I would go to insert image. So I go insert image. And I go to my project images, and this one's the playing game. So I click OK. I might hit enter below. And then shift enter. This game was created, blah, 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 blah. And then I'm going to highlight this, go to my link, click the folder, and I have it in my projects folder, mid game. And I might make the image a link, I might not, okay? If we didn't want our title to include the page name, could we adjust? Yeah, you just want the title, the page title to be descriptive, Lisa. So I put Richard Hartshorn. You can call it whatever you want. That's descriptive. It just needs that. The idea is that this is what pops up in the browser window at the top when it tells you, the page title. Like when you go to Amazon, it says Amazon in the browser tab or whatever. That's all that is. So, and then I'll go to Atom Game here. Same thing. Go to Insert Image. Atom Game. Link to it. I have, well, let me delete this space here. Link to Model Play. And then Shift Enter. This game, blah, 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 blah. And that's all I need to do. So I can save this and my projects page is done. Okay. And then for my resume, I would just go here and welcome to my resume. Now here's where it gets tricky because you need to put your content here. So you would just copy and paste little bits of your resume and then maybe something like, let me delete Beaker. Something like click here for a printable version. And then highlight it. And I put that in my miscellaneous folder. Open. And I want this to open in a new window because if it opens in the same window, then when they click on it, it's going to, and they're done, they close it out and it closes out the whole portfolio. So I'm going to go to _blank. And then I would just kind of put, the content here. And I would just go and copy and paste stuff. I'm not going to do it, but you just want, that's one of the bigger things is like formatting the resume. That takes a little bit of time because usually you're coming from a Word document where it's not, web friendly to this. Readings and stuff we're going to do later, but I'm just going to stop here because we're at 45 minutes and this is a lot. But I do want to highlight a couple of things. So let's say ultimately I want to go back and change the color of this right here. I can go into my CSS designer. So I'm in the logo. I could go to my text once I have it selected, and I'm going to make it this green color. So now it's a beautiful green color. Okay, that's terrible, but it's on all my pages. So it changed the green on all of my pages. If I wanted to change the link color, so I click here, I see the nav A, I go to text, I have the color is white, so I can change it to, whatever I want. You can see here, you have the font weight. There should be a rollover. Where is it at? There's also a rollover effect. So if I wanted to do like a rollover effect, you could do that as well. We'll look at that more. I think that might be a, let's see. Here we go. Hover. So if I click on this, go to the font and maybe make it like a blue color. Okay. So now whenever they roll over it, it's going to be the red links now, but when they roll over, it's going to be that kind of blue color. So all I do is I can change content very easily. So here, if I click in this, so I'm now in box 2, but if this right here is heading 2, you can see it's already selected here. If I go to my properties window here, change the text, I can change the size of it. I can change whatever I want of it. So it's very easy to just go over here and change it, and it changes it throughout your entire website. Okay? I know I'm saying it's very easy. I understand it's new to many of you and probably a little complicated, but with some practice, I promise you, you will get it. So I'm going to go ahead and again, real quickly, just save everything I've done. Okay. And now we want to make this visible on the web. So I'm going to go to my Files tab. I'm just going to close ePortfolio. Now, all I did was mess with the ePortfolio. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to connect. And now I'm going to click, so make sure my ePortfolio is selected. And I'm going to click up. And it's going to say, should dependent files? Yes, they should. Okay, so now I'm going to pull up a browser somewhere. Okay, and my email address is always going to start with rhartshorn.com/spring-2021/docrh, always, because that's my root directory. Okay, and again, rhartshorn.com is just the computer. On that computer, I've set up a folder for this semester called spring-2021. Each of us have our own individual folders that only we have access to, except for me. And mine is called my username, docrh. And then from there, I remember how I said this folder here is invisible in the URL. This is just my local site folder that's invisible. And I see a couple questions, so I'll get to them in 1 second. So that's not going to be part of the URL. So it's just going to be /ePortfolio/ any of those page names, okay? .html. So let me pull that up. So I go /ePortfolio/ we'll go to projects.html. I hit boom, and I see up here in the tab, Richard Hartshorn projects. I see this beautiful green color. If I scroll over it, remember how I made it an email link? If I look down at the very bottom left-hand corner, you'll see mail to Richard Hartshorn. If I highlight over each of these, well, home, that'll take me to my home page. Courses will take me to my courses page. Readings will take me to my readings page. Resume will take me to my resume page. If I click on the PDF, it opens it up in a new tab. So whenever I close it, it doesn't go away. My site is still there. And I go down here, I have richard.hartshorn. Again, I would delete as much of this as I want. So I would go back and delete those if I wanted to. Let's see, court projects page. So when I click on the MIG game, it opens up. Let's see if it works. I don't think it works anymore. Yeah, it doesn't work anymore. It was built in Adobe Flash, so, or built-in Director, but uses Adobe Flash to play it. But that you would just have those links open in new windows to highlight those particular projects. All right, so that's all I wanted to do tonight. I wanted to kind of show the power of templates, to show the power of CSS. I could go in, change any of the background colors. I could change the background border. If you don't like this kind of tiled background, you could change that by finding an image that you like. Any of this stuff is customizable. It's just getting comfortable with being able to go into this CSS designer and change font weights and font sizes and what does that mean, to do that. So anything you can do, as long as you don't save it, you can undo it very easily. So just go, if you wanted to play around with the font weight and make it bolder, you can see there did you see how it made those bolder there? So I don't like that, so I'm going to go back to medium or normal, sorry. So I'll put those back to normal. So you can kind of play around with stuff live and see what it looks like and how it's going to impact your site. That was a lot, right? Okay, so we're going to stop there. I see I have a couple questions. Is there a way to change it so that when they're on a chosen page, it has selected tab a different color? So Lisa, Lisa's question, I'm guessing you're asking that, so I'm on the readings page right here. So I want this right here to be maybe a different color. So yeah, what you would need to do in this case is not make it a link. So unlink it. So you don't need it. So if I go to let me pull up my properties window again. So if I just go here and just delete this link, and click off of it. Now it's that gray color, and no one rolls over it because it doesn't have that rollover effect anymore. So I could do that on each of the pages. So here I'm on courses. I don't need it to be linked to myself, so I could go here very easily, just delete that. Once I make that change, then I would re-upload my portfolio, my ePortfolio folder. Okay. So that was one question. How do you differentiate between changing something on a specific site versus changing it on the site? That's a great question, Mika. So if you're changing the stuff over here in the CSS designer, you're changing it on all of the pages because it's associated with content on those individual pages. But let's say here, you wanted to just change this font. When you get in here and start playing around with it, this is new font. I could then just do, maybe highlight this. I could go to, let's see here. Whoops. So I could go there, and now it didn't change that for everything. So if I go to my other pages, notice how there's still gray font there. So I just highlighted and changed it in my properties window. So yeah, that's a great question. If you want to change individual stuff, you just highlight that stuff and don't do it over here. So you can see here that this color is 8.7, but if I change this color, it's going to change all of the content that's associated with that particular property. So if I wanted to change ePortfolio, I would just, the color of it, I would just go there and then click on it, and it makes it. So you do that in the properties window. Okay, great question. How do you do? Okay, just out of curiosity, is there any way we can embed a scrollable PDF version of our resume on the resume page? Yes, there is, Kelsey. We'll talk about embedding later. So like when we do YouTube, y'all are most likely going to have YouTube videos or some type of video in your project, I'm hoping. Well, are you going to link to that video? Or are you going to have a hyperlink with some text that says, here's a video, go see? No, you're going to want that page embedded, that video embedded in your page. We'll talk about how to do that in a later updating the thing. So right now, if you have videos collected, you can just link to it now, but we'll talk about how to embed it when you're doing your audio project. Be thinking about how you're going to use audio and video in your project. So audio, you might use it to introduce the site. Hey, this is a site about, blah, blah, blah. Well, you're going to embed an audio player. We don't want to have a link there. Click here to play this on, and then they open up a new audio page and have to play. We want that embedded there so when they're interacting with your site, they're just clicking play and pause and all that stuff. So we'll talk about how to do that more in a future webinar. From a web shell, I was planning on doing something similar to what you're asking for the ePortfolio. For the web shell, Lisa, that's fine. But for your final project, you're going to want to mix it up. So be thinking of a topic, a content area, not you, because your ePortfolio is going to be about you, but it might be about, a certain position title and how you would, what are characteristics of, like, say you have you're a fourth grade teacher and you want to do tips and tricks on being a good fourth grade teacher, or you're a trainer in some environment, you want to do tips and tricks on training using multimedia or something like that. That's perfectly fine. Okay, so lots of questions. I think that's all of them, I think. And y'all don't have to type them. Y'all can speak them too as well. So I'm sure y'all get tired of listening to me talk for really, really long periods of time. So how are we feeling? Can you give me a thumbs up if you're really good? Okay. Okay. Give me a thumbs up if you're kind of, all right, I'm getting there. All right. Give me a thumbs up if you're just completely lost. All right, hold on. Let me let these thumbs up go away. All right, thumbs up if you're kind of not feeling it right now. Anyone? Okay. All right. Like I said, there will be an aha moment you all have, I promise you. It always happens in this course. Usually it happens by week 6-ish. So if you're having trouble, you will get it. I threw a lot at you tonight. So, a lot of new stuff for many of you. So don't stress out, play around with it, and you will get it. I promise you. I'll so couple comments on the final on the shell. It is due Sunday, and I will be MIA on Friday and Saturday. I will be back where I have. Oh, great question, Will. Code for the night. The code for tonight is MEEP. MEEP. Okay. Confirmation code for tonight is MEEP. I'll put it in the chat. Okay. MEEP.
Dr. Hartshorn, just
Yes.
a few
I have-
questions. So
Sure.
this Sunday we have the web shell due, but then the multimedia project is also a website which is due on April 4th. And then there's an e-portfolio. So in total, we're doing 3 websites separate.
So sort of. So the idea of the web shell is that you're getting some foundational knowledge and then adding to it and building on it, maybe changing the design entirely. That's fine. But it is a separate website because it's early in the course, and it's just like making sure you can make links and insert images and upload to the server and all those things. But it's really only the idea is that you add and update that and then that's ultimately your final multimedia project at the end of the course. And then your ePortfolio is a separate website. So you have multimedia project and ePortfolio are definitely 2 distinct websites. The web shell is just kind of a basic intro, and you can keep updating it and tweaking it if you want. You can start over from scratch after you submitted it on Sunday if you want for your multimedia project. Entirely up to you. I also want the shells also to try and get you to start thinking about topics and ideas that you might want to do for your multimedia project. So
The other question was, I know you mentioned something about the templates being in the courses.
the what? I'm sorry.
The templates, the free templates that we can
Yes.
choose. I think I came in a bit late, so I missed that part. Just I wasn't
Yeah.
sure.
So yeah, I think it's in. We'll pull this up real quick. Bear with me. So yeah, in week 3, web templates here. So you click on it, you go to these sites, and download. So here you can demo it and see, like, does it have rollover effects? Do you like it? Do you like the general layout and that sort of thing? And then you just download it and then unzip it. So it'll download as a zip file, and this one's called Industrious. So you'll just unzip it, and then you'll have CSS and index and all that stuff, and just start working with it like we did tonight. Okay,
I had another.
I'm gonna stop sharing.
I'm
Sure.
sorry.
No problem. Someone's kind of okay.
Okay, so I'm just trying to. Am I breaking up?
A little bit.
Okay. My question is, I'm trying to get like an idea in my head of how it all works. So I guess kind of like what Shazia was asking. So the web shell could essentially right now be like anything. And then when we do the multimedia project, we can go in and completely change the web shell to be more like what our final thing is, and then our ePortfolio is separate.
Yeah, the ePortfolio is about you, your knowledge, your skills, your experiences, that sort of stuff. So when you leave UCF, you can go and say, hey, here's some stuff I've done. If you want to update it through your program, you can. If you don't, because I know a lot of y'all aren't in our program, maybe you're not doing stuff that is relevant for, you don't have to do that, but you have that option to kind of update it as you go through. Dr. Gunter uses it in some classes and that sort of thing. So you have those options. The web shell is, like I said, just getting you started. You're not married to that topic. So if you do, like, you do a topic and you're like, I'm not really digging it anymore, I want to change it, go for it. All I need is at the end of the course, a multimedia project from you. Okay. I'm happy to talk about ideas and stuff like that. The idea, though, is that in this course, you're creating individual pieces of media. You're creating audio. You're creating graphics and editing graphics and creating like you're like an interactive presentation. You're not going to do video, but you'll learn about how you would use video, so you can pull video. You don't have to create everything. The idea is then at the end of the course, you're not recreating all of this stuff. You've already created stuff on a central topic throughout the course. So now you're just plugging it in a website, adding context around it, letting the user know why it's important, how they're interacting with it, all of these things. And then poof, you're done. You know, you don't have to go and recreate all this stuff, find a bunch of media that fits in. So as you're doing it, you know, you're gonna learn about audio. You're gonna learn about why you would use audio when it's really not effective. So be thinking, okay, well, I'm doing this with my website. What would be a good way for me to use audio in that? You know, maybe you kind of do like a little podcast series. You know, you don't, not all of them, but you get it started as kind of a demo of how you might use it in the forward. So you have like a little episode 1 of a little podcast or introducing a podcast, because it's only like 3 minutes. Same thing with video and your graphics narrated presentation, which we'll talk about more later. How would you use that in a final multimedia project? And so that's kind of the general idea, is that you don't have to redo all this stuff later on. How do we transfer the template to Dreamweaver? Should we add the template to one of the folders? So yeah, so let me see if I can. Hold on a second. Let's see, downloads. Okay. So I'm gonna share my screen again real quick. And let me get, it's gonna be a bit of a mess. So let me see here. Bear with me. Okay, so I'm going to download this Industrious one. I'll kind of walk through it from start to finish. Downloading it. Notice now that, so here, I'm going to show it in the folder. It downloaded a zip file, okay? So I'm going to just double click on that. So now I would just copy this. So first I would look at it and go, okay, I can play with this. Here they have 3 pages. I would open it up and say, do I like it? You know, okay, so I'm going to go with this one. So now I would just I'll just copy this. And I could go to files here. And I could just put it in my site, I think. Let's see if that works. Oh, nope. So I'm gonna go to my local site folder, and I'm just gonna paste it in there. There we go. So now that's my template there. And I would just, so now when I go here, I see, when I go back to Dreamweaver, I see there's my template there. And I would just open it up. Let me close all these down. Okay, so then I would just open up Index and then start playing around with it, start changing stuff. One thing I would say is look at it, and if you see a bunch, let me just open this real quick. So see how it has CSS, fonts, JS, which is JavaScript, and Sass. That's a pretty complicated one. If you're new to this, I would stay away from it. I would kind of go with something simple, like undeviating is pretty simple with the font CSS, default CSS. Doesn't really have a lot extra. The one that we used really just had the style CSS and images. So those are the ones that are going to be going to be easier to work with. The ones that just have CSS, images, and that sort of stuff. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing there. But all I did was download it, unzipped it, and then drug it into my local site folder, which is EME 6507 Projects Home. Okay. And then I would edit it and then click connect and upload, and I'm good to go. You're welcome. The URL for Sunday is about any of the page. Yeah, any page in your web shell, like your index page, page 2, whatever it's called, your entire URL. So what you're gonna, if do not submit to me desktop:/C:/ your EME6507. That's, I'm not gonna be able to access it. Your URL will always start, whatever you submit will always be rhartshorn.com/spring-2021/ whatever your username is minus the @rhartshorn.com plus whatever path from there you give it. Okay, so that's what you'll be submitting to me. Any more questions?
Dr. Hartshorn, I don't see a place for the code this week, so I don't know if it was necessary actually.
There's an okay, so I'll add one. So I may make it like a, no, it doesn't matter because I don't think there's, the points are already allocated for the course, so I think it'll be fine. But yeah, so maybe you don't have to submit a code this week. I'm a slacker, sorry. Questions regarding the cell merge PDF? Yeah, so Mika, let's set up a meeting for that, like a quick, send me a couple of days and times, and then we can figure that out. So it should take like 10 minutes tops.
Could we do it tonight after this meeting?
Sure, that's fine. We should be able to do that. Yeah, that works. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions? All right. Well, I look forward to seeing your terrible websites on Sunday next week. And I'm just kidding. Yeah, and if you have questions, like I said, get them to me by Thursday, or it'll be Sunday evening before I get to them. And scrambling some Sunday evenings, probably not the recommended approach for this assignment, but it is what it is. All right. Bye, everybody. And so I'm going to stop recording, Mika, and we can hang out and figure out what your issue is.
Thank you.
Sure. Bye, everybody.